In the untamed wilderness of combat sports, where only the strongest survive, a great empire had been forged. For years, one warrior stood as its ruler. Rodrigo Minotauro Nogueira, the undisputed king of Pride's heavyweight division, a master of resilience. His domain was the ring, his weapon an unbreakable spirit. Many had tried to overthrow him, yet all had fallen before his relentless will. But in the shadows, a new force was rising, a quiet storm from the frozen lands of Russia, a man whose face bore no emotion, whose demeanor betrayed no fear. His name was Fedor Emelianenko. Unlike the warriors who came before him, he carried no bravado, no grand proclamations, only an aura of inevitability. His hands struck with the force of a sledgehammer. His ground control was suffocating, and his mind, always calculating, seemed impervious to pressure. The clash was inevitable, a battle between two unbreakable wills, a moment that would shape the future of Pride's heavyweight division. But in this realm, one victory is never enough. For in the wild, even the mightiest predator must constantly defend its place. And then a new force emerged, a man whose very name would become synonymous with destruction. Mirko Cro Cop Filipović, a warrior with the precision of a marksman and the power of a hurricane. Where others relied on brute force, he wielded his left leg like a blade, felling giants with a single strike. Each warrior brought a different weapon, a different philosophy of combat. And so this is the story of a champion's rise, of battles waged in pursuit of glory, and of a division where only the strongest could endure. Please join me as we look back at the age of the three kings of Pride's heavyweight division.
Mirko Cro Cop is 36-2 to Antônio Rodrigo Nogueira.
Pride heavyweight champion
Emelianenko.
Fedor Emelianenko. The anticipation here of these two sportsmen at the pinnacle of their craft.
As the battle begins, two vastly different forces collide. On one side, the reigning champion, a man who has endured the onslaught of the world's most dangerous warriors and emerged victorious. Opposite him stands the challenger, cold, methodical, and utterly relentless. What we were witnessing was nothing short of extraordinary. Nogueira, a grandmaster of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, had made his name by ensnaring opponents, by luring them into his guard, a place from which few had ever escaped. And yet here, in the heart of battle, Fedor Emelianenko did the unthinkable. He did not avoid the ground. He did not seek to escape. Instead, he chose to fight fire with fire, to enter the lair of the submission artist and dismantle him at his own game.
Blood and violence. Oh, that's it. Oh, big shots! Big shots! Fedor's all over Nogueira. Nogueira has never been in this kind of trouble. He is a threat. He's a big time. Nogueira's in big trouble.
The crowd watches in awe. Never before has the champion been treated this way, his seemingly impenetrable guard rendered ineffective. For many, such a relentless assault would have signaled the beginning of the end. The sheer ferocity of Fedor's attack had been enough to break lesser men, but Nogueira was not like other men. He was forged in the fires of adversity, a warrior whose very essence was defined by his ability to endure. Nogueira pressed forward, undeterred by the storm he had weathered, his will unbroken. To stop Nogueira, one had to do more than hurt him. One had to break him entirely. And on this night, Despite the punishment he had endured, the great Brazilian refused to be broken. The world has just witnessed something extraordinary.
If it connects, it's over.
That's the key. You're absolutely right.
Once again, the warrior known as Minotauro steps into battle. His reputation precedes him, a man forged in the fires of combat, whose resilience has made him nearly indestructible. But tonight, he faces a vastly different challenge. Not a relentless grappler, not a suffocating wrestler, but a predator, a marksman, a man whose very presence instills fear in those who stand before him. The legendary grappler struggles to find an answer. His attempts to close the distance are met with punishing resistance. Every moment that passes, the balance of power shifts further in favor of the striker. But if there is one thing history has taught us, it is that Nogueira does not break. He does not surrender. He endures. And as the battle rages on, he searches for the one opening that could turn the tide. The Croatian powerhouse, who once seemed untouchable, now finds himself ensnared, his fate sealed by the very resilience he had tried to break. And as the final tap echoes through the arena, it is clear that no storm, no force, and no man can truly extinguish the heart of a champion. Once more, the immovable champion and the unstoppable challenger stand across from one another, their rivalry now cemented as one of the greatest battles of will and skill ever witnessed. Minotauro Nogueira seeks redemption to prove that his legacy cannot be overturned. Fedor's pace is relentless, his strikes landing with mechanical precision, each one carrying the weight of inevitability. But Nogueira, as always, is undeterred. As the fight rages on, fate intervenes. A clash of heads, unintentional yet devastating, opens a wound above the Russian's eye. Blood spills, not from a strike nor a submission, but from sheer misfortune. And suddenly, the contest is no longer in the hands of these two warriors, but in those of the officials.
It's a big cut. It's a big cut.
That's a huge gas. Oh my.
It's not all the way through though.
Oh, it might have been the butts. It might have been the clashing of the heads. Even.
Yeah. It looks like that.
And that's what it is, boss.
That's what it is.
We don't want to see a tournament of this stature end like this.
The doctors step in. As the crowd holds its breath, the fight cannot continue. And so they meet again. Two warriors, bound by fate, prepare to meet for a third and final time. Minotauro Nogueira seeks to reclaim his throne. The reigning champion Fedor Emelianenko looks to end the debate once and for all. The bell rings, and immediately, Fedor imposes his will. His approach is ruthless and methodical. Every strike is thrown with measured precision. Every movement is designed to smother, to control, to dominate. The Russian does not simply fight. He dictates, dragging Nogueira into the same suffocating storm that overwhelmed him before. But Nogueira is no ordinary opponent. His resilience has turned lost battles into legendary victories. Even now, under the weight of Fedor's relentless assault, he searches for the smallest opening, the slimmest chance to ensnare the champion and shift the tide. He has done it before. He believes he can do it again.
Armbar there at the end of the first round. Big right hand follows through with the takedown, right back to his feet. Block. Oh, threw that right hand right as Nogueira threw that tie kick. Oh, man, that's about as big a right hand as you're going to see in this sport. Holy cow.
As the second round begins, Nogueira presses forward, undeterred by the punishment he has already endured. He knows that if he is to reclaim his throne, he must find a way to drag the champion into his world. With each exchange, he reaches, grasping for an arm, a leg, any limb he can trap and twist into submission. But Fedor is always a step ahead, slipping from each attempt with a composure that borders on effortless. The Russian's movements are precise, his balance unshaken, his control absolute.
Look at him, there's a hammer fist. Again, it's like the second time we've seen it now at the end of the round where some real damage could have been done either with the strikes or submission attempts, and yet the bell goes.
By the third round, the toll of the battle is undeniable. Nogueira remains standing, but his body bears the scars of Fedor's relentless assault. Despite it all, he continues to fight, his spirit refusing to yield. Again and again, he reaches for a lifeline, an opportunity to turn the tide. But Fedor allows him nothing. No space, no breath, and no reprieve. With each passing second, the inevitability of the outcome becomes clearer. The champion does not merely defend his title, he reinforces his rule with every exchange, cementing his dominance in a display of skill, power, and an unshakable will to win. With unwavering composure, Fedor answers every question posed by the great Minotauro, leaving no doubt as to who commands this battlefield. As the final moments slip away, the truth becomes undeniable. This is not just a victory, it is a statement. When the dust settles and the final decision is rendered, Fedor Emelianenko stands alone, undisputed. The debate ends, the rivalry is settled.
Unanimous decision for Fedor, as we suspected.
Needless to say, a unanimous decision for...
Now, at long last, it was time for the fight that had been prophesized. For years, their names were spoken in tandem. Two titans on a collision course, their meeting seemingly inevitable. Fedor Emelianenko, the unshakable force of nature, whose reign atop Pride's heavyweight division had become mythic. Cro Cop, ever the predator, moved methodically. He tested Fedor's defenses, a warning of the devastation that could follow. The Russian, however, was unshaken. He does not simply survive, he fights forward, forcing the striker into unfamiliar territory, making him retreat. The unstoppable force has met an unmovable object. Cro Cop's game was predicated on control and distance. But Fedor approached the fight not as a battle of distance, but as a battle of control over his opponent's will. It became evident that Fedor would not be intimidated, nor would he be kept at range.
This is crazy. He is a master in game plans. Fedor Emelianenko
delivers a knee to boot.
Where others had faltered, Fedor moved inside the fire, pressuring Cro Cop in ways that few had ever dared. Cro Cop was always a threat. There was a constant, looming danger when in his presence. Each movement from Cro Cop carried the potential for devastation. The crowd knew they were witnessing something historic. This was a fight of two master tacticians. It was not simply a title fight. It was a battle for the very soul of Pride's heavyweight division. The debate had raged endlessly. Who, if anyone, could stop Fedor? And if there was an answer, surely it lay in the Croatian's thunderous kicks. As the first round drew to a close, both warriors found themselves at a crucial crossroads. The first round had been a brutal exchange of wills, and as the bell rang, they each retreated to their corners, preparing for the storm that was yet to come. But one thing was certain, both men were aware, this was far from over. Cro Cop, his eyes focused, perhaps felt the weight of having unleashed his most feared weapons. But there was no overwhelming dominance, no clean finish. He had landed his shots, yet the Russian stood before him, unbroken, unbowed. There may have been a flicker of frustration within him, a sense that Fedor was not yielding to the storm, but instead, he was weathering it. Seemingly unaffected by the barrage that had felled so many before him, the crowd holding its collective breath, there was a growing recognition that this fight was different. The Russian's forward momentum was relentless. He didn't allow Cro Cop to establish his rhythm, forcing Cro Cop to engage at close quarters and thereby neutralizing the power of his kicks, stifling the one weapon that had made him a legend. But the Russian was not immune to the toll of battle. His face, usually a mask of stoic calm, carried the faintest traces of wear. Both warriors, though resolute, carried the marks of the savage exchanges that had come before. Cro Cop continued to circle with calculated steps, searching for any opening. The Russian's ability to absorb and adapt to his relentless strikes became increasingly evident as the fight progressed. And so, Fedor continued to press forward, inching closer and closing the distance with every step. Fedor continued marching, a relentless force, always moving forward.
There he went for throwing that left hook, yep. And look at the reaction of Cro Cop here, look. He stands still for a second.
The Croatian continued to fight with everything he had, but there was a sense of desperation now, an awareness that his window for victory was rapidly closing. Meanwhile, Fedor, unfazed and resolute, continued to apply his relentless pressure, pushing Cro Cop into territory he wasn't accustomed to. The third round was a masterclass in endurance, in resolve, and in the relentless pursuit of victory. Fedor survived the storm and was inching ever closer to the moment where the battle would be decided. As the final moments drew near, it was clear who had won the day. In the face of a relentless onslaught, Fedor had endured, adapted, and outlasted. He was no longer merely fighting for victory. He was fighting for the crown of being the man who could not be dethroned, the man who had conquered all comers, and in doing so had etched his name into the very fabric of Pride's heavyweight history. And so, having risen to the occasion once again, Fedor Emelianenko cemented his legacy as the greatest heavyweight in Pride history. His reign was not just defined by his victories, but by the manner in which he achieved them. Time and time again, he faced the very best the world had to offer and emerged victorious. His place at the top of the mountain unchallenged in the annals of Pride. His name would forever be etched as the one who stood above all, the undisputed king, who had proven that greatness was not a fleeting moment, but a legacy forged through unyielding perseverance.